Greetings, I hope you're all good and well. I was in a second-hand bookstore recently and I found this little gem. Back Home at the O.R.G.Y by Ted Mark. Just look at that cover. It was published back in the 1960s and I would describe this book as humorous science fiction erotica. The main protagonist is like a 30-year-old man who works as a sexologist, and he travels around studying different cultures and their sexual practices. The beginning of the book, he travels to Tibet to study the culture there. In Tibet there's a polyandrous society. I don't know whether it still exists today. I think it does. Polyandry is where one woman has several different husbands. So he travels over there, he introduces himself to the locals, and after a day or two he actually ends up having an orgy, like a 6-person orgy with one woman and 5 men. And the woman involved in this orgy has a father. She lives with her father, and her father is an inventor, and he's invented this time machine. And the main protagonist accidentally walks into this time machine, gets trapped in there, and he ends up getting sent back in time here and there in all these different time zones. And the whole entire book is basically him being sent here and there, and he's trying to get back to Tibet, to the present day. It's completely ridiculous, of course, but that's the kind of book it is. If you're prepared to go with it, it's a good book. If you're, if you can accept the ridiculous nature of it all, it's a good book. There's going to be plenty of spoilers in this book review. I'm basically going to give the whole book away, but you're probably unlikely to find this book anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Notable scenes in the book include the Queen of Sheba. He actually meets the Queen of Sheba. He goes to ancient Rome and gets involved in a big orgy in ancient Rome, which used to happen in those days. And there's another weird scene where he has sex with a woman on the street in ancient Rome. And while he's having sex with her, a horse actually shits on her head. It's strange, I know, but I'm just describing what happens in this book. There's another scene where he goes to Arabia, the Middle East, in the Arabian times. It's like the times of the Crusades. And there are loads of eunuchs during this time period, and he poses as a eunuch. And these eunuchs used to give massages to women, like important women in Arabia. But then it's soon discovered that he's not actually a eunuch, and he has to run away and escape from Arabia. There's another scene in the book, another chapter, where he ends up on a pirate ship and he meets Captain Morgan, who was like a famous pirate from back in the day. And the whole entire chapter is based on this real event where Captain Morgan invaded Panama. I can't remember the year exactly, but it's actually quite educational. You learn about Captain Morgan. There's another scene where he's in Russia. There's a hilarious scene in Russia where a man and a woman are sitting on a horse and cart, and they think that they're having sex with each other and kind of fondling each other under this blanket. But in actual fact, the main protagonist and another woman are behind them, and they're kind of interfering with them. It's all a big mix-up. It's just a weird scene. There's another scene where he's in America during the Klondike Gold Rush. And this is even more bizarre, but I'll get to this later on. And at the end of the book, he ends up in Vietnam, ironically enough. I can, after reading this book, I kind of see this book here as soft pornography mixed in with a bit of historical education. I do feel as though I actually learnt a thing or two from reading this book. It's quite educational in a way. I think the author was actually a historian. I think he's dead now, but he was quite knowledgeable. Otherwise he wouldn't have written a book like this. So I have learnt a thing or two. The prose is very competent. It's very well written. It's very detailed, as I say. There's loads of history thrown in. I was never really bored during reading it. My main criticism is that the technology is unbelievable. The way this time machine is described, and the way that he's got this radio that connects with the present day is unbelievable. Everything about it is completely farcical, and there's loads of unrealistic dialogue. It's impossible to take this book too seriously, basically. But if you're willing to overlook that, it's quite a good book. On a personal level as well, it wasn't quite as explicit as I would have liked it to be. As a lover of shocking material, I was hoping that the sexual scenes would be more explicit and upfront, but it comes across more as soft pornography. I wanted hardcore. So that's a little bit of a criticism. However, the ending to this book is completely bizarre, and it kind of makes up for the fact that it's not shocking enough. The ending to this book was completely unexpected and completely surreal, as you'll find out in just a moment.
Thank you for making it to the halfway point of this video. This is just a quick message to let you know that I have my own range of books that are available, mainly science fiction and horror, and some of them are free. If you enjoy my videos and my work, you could help me a lot by checking out my books and leaving reviews for them on Amazon and Goodreads. It would help way more than you think, believe me. You can actually support my work without spending any money at all. A review for one of my free books would easily suffice. The links for my books are below. Thank you. Now back to the video.
In the second to last scene in this book, he ends up in America in the late 19th century, I think it was, during the Klondike Gold Rush, which was a real time period. He ends up meeting a woman, having sex with her and getting her pregnant. He then discovers what her surname is, and he then discovers that this woman who he's had sex with is his own grandmother. Upon realising that, he realises that the baby she's about to give birth to is his own father. And then he realises that that means that he is actually his own grandfather. Quite bizarre. However, the final scene in this book is even more bizarre. He ends up in Vietnam in the future. A future Vietnam. The world is overpopulated, and so every male baby that's born has to be castrated. That means that he's the only man in the entire country that has a penis, and so that also means that he can basically spend the rest of his life having sex with every single woman. All women flock to him because he's the only man with a penis. Look, it's a ridiculous book. It's a ridiculous book, but now and again I like stuff like this. Now and again it's nice to take a break from the serious literature and read something humorous and comical. And if you want humour, and if you want a bit of smut, this book is for you. I enjoyed it. It's entertaining. It's entertaining. He ends up in a country where he's the only man who has a penis. It's funny. It's funny. I enjoyed it. It's a good book. This book, you can find this book on eBay, and you might be able to find it on Amazon. It would probably cost you about $20 to buy a second-hand copy of it. It's worth it, in my opinion. It's an entertaining read. Okay, so if you find it in a charity shop or a second-hand bookstore for like 50 pence, buy it. And if you like humorous, smutty material, pay about $20 for it. It is worth it. It's an entertaining read. So that's it. Back Home at the O.R.G.Y by Ted Mark. I recommend it if you like funny material. Thanks very much for watching. I'll be back in about 2 weeks with another book review. In the meantime, try to have a good day on this smutty, bizarre piece of rock we call Earth. Lots of love. Goodbye.